Captain Lee Jun stared at the star map floating in front of him. The research ship Handbit moved slowly through empty space, far from any planet with life. They had been out here for 3 months, looking for old ruins and dead worlds. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. "Captain, we have something strange," said Dr. Park Hana from her station. She was the team's expert on old alien stuff. Her voice sounded excited, which was unusual. Most of the time, they found nothing but rocks and dust. Lee Jun walked over to her console. On the screen, he could see a planet that looked dead and gray. But there were lines of light coming from it, showing energy readings that made no sense. "What am I looking at?" he asked. "Energy signals from Kepler 442c, Park Hana said. She pointed at the numbers on her screen. "But Captain, these readings don't match anything in our database. This energy pattern is completely unknown." Commander Kang Tae-ho, the ship's second officer, came over to look. He was a careful man who never liked taking risks. "It could be dangerous. We should report this to headquarters and wait for orders." "That could take weeks," said Park Hana. "If there's something down there, it might be the discovery of a lifetime." Lee Jun looked at the planet again. In all his years of space travel, he had learned to trust his gut feelings. Something about this place felt important. Very important. "We're going down to take a look," he decided. "Prepare a landing team." 2 hours later, Lee Jun stood on the surface of the dead planet. The air was thin but breathable. The sky was dark red, and no wind blew across the empty landscape. With him were Park Hana, Dr. Kim So-ra, who was their computer expert, and 4 security guards. "The energy is coming from underground," Kim So-ra said, checking her scanner. "About 2 kilometers down. There's a huge structure beneath us." They found an entrance hidden behind fallen rocks. It led to a tunnel that went deep into the planet. Their lights showed walls made of some kind of metal that still looked new, even though it had to be very old. "This is incredible," Park Hana whispered as they walked deeper. "The building techniques are completely unknown. This isn't like any alien technology we've seen before." The tunnel opened into a massive underground space. Lee Jun's jaw dropped. They were standing in what looked like a giant factory or shipyard, but it was bigger than any human building. Much bigger. Strange machines filled the space, all silent and dark, but in the center something huge caught their attention. It was a ship, but unlike any ship they had ever seen. It was enormous and beautiful, with curves and angles that seemed almost alive, but it was clearly not finished. "My God," Kim So-ra said softly. "Look at the size of it. That ship could hold 1 million people." Park Hana was already taking readings with her equipment. "The metal is unknown. The design patterns don't match any species in the Federation database. This is completely alien." Lee Jun walked closer to the giant ship. Something about it felt familiar, though he couldn't understand why. "How old is this place?" "The energy decay suggests millions of years," Park Hana said. "But Captain, that's impossible. No civilization we know of existed that long ago." Kim So-ra had found a control panel near the ship. The symbols on it were strange, but somehow they seemed almost readable. "I think I can interface with their computer system," she said. "Maybe we can learn more about who built this." "Be careful," Lee Jun warned. "We don't know what we're dealing with." Kim So-ra connected her portable computer to the alien panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire facility began to hum with power. Lights came on everywhere, showing them just how massive the place really was. Suddenly a voice spoke. It was speaking in mathematical concepts that somehow made sense, then shifted to broken words they could understand. "Welcome back," the voice said. "Genesis protocol activated. Analyzing. Human genetic markers confirmed. You have returned." Everyone froze. The voice was coming from speakers all around them. "Who are you?" Lee Jun called out. "I am Guardian, Keeper of the Last Project." You are descendants of the builders, the ones who went away. Park Hana's scanner was going crazy with readings. Captain, this AI is more advanced than anything we have. Its processing power is off the charts. Builders? Li Jun asked. What builders? The air in front of them shimmered, and images appeared. They showed humans in advanced spacesuits working on massive ships. But these weren't modern humans. They looked the same, but their technology was far beyond anything that existed today. Your people, Guardian said, its voice getting clearer. The first human empire. Masters of 10,000 worlds. Builders of ships that could cross between stars like stepping stones. Kim So-ra stared at the images. That's impossible. Humans only reached space 300 years ago. We only met aliens 200 years ago. No, Guardian said sadly. That was the second time. The forgetting was necessary, to hide, to survive. But now, the time of hiding is over. More images appeared. They showed great battles in space, with human ships fighting against something dark and terrible. Then they showed human worlds burning. And finally, humans fleeing to a small blue planet. Earth, Li Jun whispered. The last refuge, Guardian confirmed. Your ancestors chose to forget rather than face extinction. They hid their history, their technology, even their memories. They made themselves small and weak, hoping the enemy would not find them. What enemy? Park Hana asked, but Guardian's voice became filled with something like fear. They come from outside the galaxy. They consume light itself. They are returning, and when they arrive, the galaxy will face the same choice your ancestors faced, the Bay. Images showed space itself being torn apart by creatures that seemed to be made of darkness. This ship, Guardian continued, was to be the salvation of your people, a vessel to carry humanity beyond the reach of the Devourers. But time ran out. The last builders were forced to flee before it was completed. Li Jun looked up at the massive, unfinished ship. Can it be completed? Yes, Guardian said, if your people remember who they truly are, if they are willing to face what comes. The plans are here. The technology waits. But the choice is yours. The weight of what they had discovered settled on the team. Humanity wasn't new to the galaxy. They were returning to it. And something terrible was coming that had driven their ancestors to forget everything they had been. Kim So-ra was recording everything, her hands shaking slightly. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. No, Guardian said, firmly. First, you must understand. Your return has been detected. The awakening of this facility sends signals across space. The enemy will know that humanity has remembered. Time is short. Li Jun felt the weight of command heavier than ever before. His simple exploration mission had just become something that could change the fate of every human alive. How long do we have? He asked. Unknown, Guardian replied. But they are already moving. The darkness stirs in the space between galaxies. Your people must choose quickly, hide again and hope for mercy, or remember their strength and fight for survival. As the ancient AI's words echoed through the vast underground facility, Li Jun knew that nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days after the discovery, Earth's government was in chaos. The news that humans had once ruled the galaxy hit every planet like a bomb. Admiral Cho Min-ki stood in the emergency meeting room on Luna Station, watching politicians argue while the galaxy burned with rumors. This is impossible, said President Williams of the North American Federation. Our historical records go back thousands of years. There's no evidence of any advanced human civilization. That's exactly the point, Admiral Cho said calmly. If this Guardian AI is telling the truth, the forgetting was complete. Our ancestors wiped their own memories to hide from something worse than death. On the main screen, reports were coming in from across human space. The discovery had leaked despite all attempts to keep it secret. Some humans were celebrating, thinking they were about to inherit amazing technology. Others were terrified, realizing that if humans had to hide once, they might have to hide again. But the real problem was the aliens. Commander Yoon Dae-sung was back on Kepler 442c, leading a team of engineers trying to understand the ancient technology. Every day, they discovered new things that shouldn't be possible. The unfinished ship used metals that were stronger than anything known to science. Its computer systems worked on principles that human science hadn't even imagined. "Look at this," said Dr. Young Eun-ji, showing him a piece of the ship's hull. "This metal repairs itself. When I cut a sample, the ship actually grew new material to fill the gap." Yoon Dae-sung shook his head in amazement. The Federation's best scientists have been trying to make self-repairing materials for decades. And humans did this millions of years ago? "Not just humans," Jung Eun-ji corrected. "Superhumans. Look at the size of the control interfaces. The original builders were taller and stronger than modern humans. And their brains must have been different, too, to understand this technology." Outside the underground facility, the political situation was getting worse. The Galactic Federation had sent a fleet to surround the planet. They claimed it was to protect the site, but everyone knew better. Admiral Cho's ships were facing off against vessels from 6 different alien species, all demanding access to the human discovery. The Theocratic Union of Zephyria is calling it an abomination, reported Captain Bae Soo-jin from her ship in orbit. They say that if humans were meant to have this technology, their gods would not have allowed them to forget it. Admiral Cho listened to the reports with growing concern. The Federation had always treated humans as useful, but unimportant members. Now they were faced with the possibility that humans might be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. "Sir," his communications officer said, "the Valdorian Empire is demanding that we hand over all human historical records for review. They want to verify that we really don't remember our past." "Tell them no," Admiral Cho said firmly. "What we found is ours by right of discovery and blood." Meanwhile, down in the facility, Dr. Kim So-ra was having the strangest conversations of her life. Guardian seemed to enjoy talking with humans again, even though it had been alone for millions of years. "Your ancestors were brilliant," Guardian told her. "They created me not just to guard their technology, but to help future humans understand their heritage. I have been waiting so long for this day." "What were they really like?" Kim So-ra asked. "The first humans?" Guardian's holographic display showed images of great cities floating in space, connected by bridges of light. Humans in the images moved with a grace that seemed almost supernatural. Their ships were works of art as much as they were machines. They were explorers, Guardian said. They spread across the galaxy not to conquer, but to learn and grow. Every new world taught them something new. Every alien species they met became their friends and teachers. Then what went wrong? The images changed, showing darkness creeping between the stars. The Devourers came from another galaxy. They consumed entire solar systems, turning matter itself into energy for their ships. Worse, they corrupted everything they touched. Planets that survived their attacks became twisted, wrong. Kim So-ra watched in horror as the images showed beautiful worlds becoming nightmare landscapes. How did humans fight something like that? At first, they tried to run, but the Devourers followed. So your ancestors chose to evolve. They changed themselves, becoming something beyond normal human. They built ships that could exist in multiple dimensions at once. They learned to manipulate time and space like tools. But they still lost? Guardian was quiet for a long moment. They won every battle, but victory came at a terrible price. To fight the Devourers, humans had to become something almost as dangerous. They began to lose their humanity in the process of saving it. On Earth, protests were breaking out in major cities. Some humans demanded that the government build more ships like the one they had found. Others wanted the facility destroyed before it brought disaster to Earth. President Chen of the Asian Coalition held an emergency press conference. "We must proceed carefully," she said. "The discovery of our ancient heritage is wonderful, but we cannot ignore the warnings that came with it." But not everyone wanted to be careful. In the underground facility, Captain Li Jun was meeting with Guardian about a dangerous possibility. "Can the ship be completed?" he asked directly. "Yes," Guardian replied. "The construction systems are still functional, but it would require resources from across human space and time. Time we may not have." "What do you mean?" "My sensors detect disturbances in dark space, far beyond the galaxy's edge. The pattern matches records from the last war. The Devourers may already be returning." Captain Bei Su-jin was dealing with more immediate problems. The alien fleets surrounding the planet were getting more aggressive. 3 times that day, alien ships had tried to send landing parties to the surface. Each time, her forces had turned them away, but tensions were rising. "Captain," her tactical officer reported, "the Zephyrians are powering up their weapons. They're claiming we're violating galactic law by excluding Federation scientists from the site. Galactic law doesn't apply to human worlds during archaeological discoveries," Bei Su-jin replied. "But let's not give them an excuse to start shooting." The real breakthrough came when engineer Yoon Dae-sung figured out how to activate one of the ship's smaller systems. It was just a simple gravity controller, but when it came online, every human in the facility felt something strange happen. "Did you feel that?" asked Dr. Jung Eun-ji. "It was like remembering something I never knew." Yoon Dae-sung nodded. "The ship is designed to interface with human consciousness. Guardian told me that the original builders didn't just operate their technology, they became part of it." Guardian confirmed this. "The ship is not just a vessel. It is a living extension of human will. To complete it, humans must remember not just how to build, but how to become more than they currently are." Admiral Cho made the decision that would change everything. He sent an encrypted message to every human colony and space station. "Project Genesis is authorized. All available resources are to be redirected to the construction of humanity's legacy." The message caused an uproar in the Federation. Within hours, 3 alien species had formally protested. The Valdorian Empire issued an ultimatum: halt all work on the ancient technology or face economic sanctions. "Let them try," Admiral Cho told his staff. "For too long, humans have been the junior partners in this galaxy. Maybe it's time they remembered that we were here first." But even as human shipyards began retooling to support the project, darker news was coming from deep space monitoring stations. Dr. Park Hana was the first to notice the strange readings. "Something is happening in the space between galaxies," she reported to Captain Li Jun. "Energy signatures unlike anything we've seen before. They're moving this way." Guardian's response to this news was immediate and terrifying. "They have detected the awakening. The Devourers are returning to finish what they started. We have perhaps 1 year before they reach the outer edge of the galaxy." The room fell silent. 1 year to complete a project that their ancestors had abandoned unfinished. 1 year to prepare for an enemy that had already destroyed human civilization once. "Can it be done?" Li Jun asked. "Unknown," Guardian replied. "But if it cannot, then humanity's second emergence will also be its last." 6 months into the project, engineer Lim Jae-woo had barely slept in weeks. The secret construction facility hidden in the asteroid belt was working around the clock, but the ancient ship was fighting them every step of the way. "The problem is that it's not just a machine," he explained to Admiral Cho during their daily briefing. "Every time we try to add a new section, the ship decides if it wants to accept it. Yesterday, it rejected an entire engine module because the metal wasn't pure enough." Around them, thousands of workers from dozens of human colonies labored in the vast space station that had been built specifically for this project. They called it Haven Station, and it was already the largest human construction in space. Captain Seo Hyun-woo commanded the security forces protecting the project. He had good reason to be worried. 3 times in the past month, alien ships had tried to infiltrate the asteroid field. Each time they claimed to be conducting routine patrols, but everyone knew they were spying. The Valdorian Empire has pulled all their trade agreements with human colonies, he reported. They're trying to strangle our economy until we abandon the project. Let them try, Admiral Cho said. We're beyond the point of no return now. The ship itself was magnificent and terrifying. Even half-finished, it stretched for almost 10 kilometers. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal, but was harder than diamond. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared across its surface, as if the ship was trying to communicate. Dr. Han Ye-jin was the project's chief physicist, and she was discovering things that shouldn't be possible every day. The ship's power core used principles that human science couldn't explain. It's drawing energy from somewhere else, she told her team. Not just fusion or antimatter, it's pulling power from what I can only describe as the foundation of reality itself. Her assistant, Dr. Ryu Min-ho, showed her the latest readings. The power output is increasing as we add more sections. It's like the ship is becoming more alive. The most mysterious part was the control systems. Guardian had shown them how to build the interfaces, but using them was another matter entirely. When humans touched the control panels, strange things happened. Some people reported seeing visions of space battles that had happened millions of years ago. Others found they could understand languages they had never learned. Lieutenant Kwon Mi-young was one of the test pilots trying to learn how to operate the ship's systems. She had volunteered despite the risks, which were very real. 2 pilots had already been hospitalized after neural feedback from the controls. It's like the ship is trying to teach me, she told Dr. Han Ye-jin after her latest session. When I touch the controls, I know things. I understand how to navigate through dimensions I can't even see. But the strangest thing was what happened to the construction workers themselves. People who spent time working on the ship began to change. They became stronger, faster, smarter. Their reflexes improved dramatically. Some developed what could only be called psychic abilities. It's in the ship's field, Dr. Han Ye-jin explained to Admiral Cho. Some kind of energy that affects human DNA. The longer people work here, the more they change. Is it dangerous? Admiral Cho asked. I don't think so, but they're becoming something more than normal humans. Just like Guardian said the original builders were. The political situation was getting worse every day. Half the Galactic Federation was demanding that humans stop construction immediately. The other half was begging for access to the technology. Several minor alien species had started building their own fleets, claiming they needed to defend themselves against the returning human empire. Captain Bae Soo-jin was now commanding an entire task force defending human space. Every day brought new confrontations with alien ships testing their defenses. The Theocratic Union has declared holy war against us, she reported during a secure conference call. They're claiming that humans are demons returning to corrupt the galaxy. Holy war or not, Admiral Cho replied, they won't get close to Haven Station. But the real threat was becoming clear from deep space observations. The energy signatures Dr. Park Hana had detected were getting stronger and closer. Whatever was coming from beyond the galaxy was massive beyond imagination. Guardian provided what information it could, but even the ancient AI seemed worried. The Devourer fleet that approaches is larger than the one that fought your ancestors. They have had millions of years to grow stronger, while humanity forgot how to fight. In the construction bays, Lim Jae-woo was dealing with increasingly strange problems. The ship seemed to be building itself in some sections, adding systems that weren't in the original plans. It's creating new weapons, he reported to Admiral Cho. Devices that don't exist in any database. When I ask Guardian about them, it says the ship is adapting to face current threats. Dr. Jung Yun-ji had discovered something even more disturbing in the historical records Guardian provided. The original human empire didn't fall in battle, she told the senior staff. They chose to retreat. According to these records, they could have won the war, but victory would have required them to become something that was no longer human. "What do you mean?" Admiral Cho asked. To fight the Devourers effectively, humans had to evolve beyond biological limitations. They were becoming energy beings, creatures of pure thought and will. The last emperor decided that saving humanity meant preserving what made them human, even if it meant forgetting everything else. This news created a new crisis. If completing the ship meant losing their humanity, was it worth the price? Guardian had an answer, but it wasn't comforting. The choice remains the same as it was before, evolve or die. But this time, perhaps, your people can find a middle path. The ship is designed to enhance humanity, not replace it. The breakthrough came when Lieutenant Kwon Mi-young successfully piloted a test flight of one of the ship's small fighter craft. The experience changed her in ways that were immediately obvious. "I can see things differently now," she explained to Dr. Han Ye-jin. "Not just with my eyes, but with my mind. I can sense the movement of objects in space, feel the flow of energy through the ship's systems." "How do you feel about the changes?" Dr. Han Ye-jin asked. "I feel more myself than I ever have," Kwon Mi-young replied. "Like I was sleeping before and now I'm finally awake." But not everyone was happy with the transformations. Some of the construction workers asked to be transferred away from the project after developing abilities that frightened them. Others embraced the changes, working longer hours and pushing themselves to evolve further. Captain Seo Hyun-woo noticed that his security teams were becoming incredibly effective. "My people are anticipating attacks before they happen," he reported. "They're moving like they share a group mind, but they're still individuals." The project reached a critical milestone when the ship's main power core came online. The moment it activated, every human within a light year felt something change. On Earth, sensitive individuals reported dreams of vast spaces and impossible journeys. On human colonies, children began drawing pictures of stars they had never seen. "The ship is calling to them," Guardian explained. "It recognizes all humans as potential crew members. The connection spans space itself." Admiral Cho realized that they were approaching a point of no return. "How long until the ship is ready?" he asked Lim Jae-woo. 3 months for basic functionality," the engineer replied. 6 months for full capability. But Admiral, we need to talk about crew selection. Not every human can interface with the ship's systems safely. What do you recommend?" "We need volunteers who understand what they're signing up for. Operating this ship will change them permanently. They'll become something between human and something else." As if responding to their conversation, alerts began sounding throughout Haven Station. Deep space sensors had detected something new. Not the slow approach of the Devourer fleet, but something much closer and more immediate. "Unidentified ships dropping out of hyperspace," Captain Seo Hyun-woo reported. "Configuration unknown. They're not in any Federation database. On the main display, strange vessels appeared. They moved with impossible grace, seeming to flow through space rather than travel through it. Their hulls were dark as night, and they absorbed sensor beams rather than reflecting them." "Guardian!" Admiral Cho called out. "What are we looking at?" The ancient AI's response filled the command center with dread. "Devourer scouts! They have found you sooner than expected. The main fleet cannot be far behind." The first shots of the new war had not yet been fired, but everyone knew that humanity's peaceful period of construction was over. Now, they would have to complete their ancient legacy while fighting for their lives. The completed warship Taeguk was nothing like any vessel in human space. Commander Oh Jin-ho stood on its bridge, watching displays that showed information his mind could barely process. The ship existed in normal space, but also in dimensions that had no names. "Devourer scouts are moving through the outer system," reported Dr. Shin Ah-ram, who served as the link between human consciousness and the ship's AI systems. When she spoke, Her voice carried harmonics that seemed to come from the ship itself. "They're testing our defenses." 3 months had passed since the first enemy ships appeared. The Federation had tried to negotiate with the Devourers, but the aliens communicated only through destruction. They had already consumed 2 uninhabited star systems, turning entire planets into energy for their fleet. Admiral Moon Sang-ho coordinated the defense from his flagship. Around him, human ships equipped with modified alien technology faced an enemy that broke every rule of physics. Devourer vessels moved through solid matter like it was empty space. Their weapons turned stars into weapons, making entire solar systems uninhabitable. "The conventional fleet is having no effect," he reported to Oh Jin-ho. "Our best weapons pass right through their ships. They exist partially outside normal space-time." The Teguk was different. As it moved through space, reality seemed to bend around it. The ship's hull shifted between dimensions, making it almost impossible to target. When enemy fire did hit, the energy was absorbed and redirected back at the attackers. Captain Ryu Dong-min had been chosen to lead the first real combat test. His fighter squadron was composed entirely of volunteers who had undergone the transformation process. They no longer looked quite human, with enhanced reflexes and the ability to interface directly with their ships. "Beginning attack run on the lead Devourer vessel," he reported. His voice was calm, but those who knew him could hear the change. The enhancement process had given him abilities that were beyond normal human limits. The battle that followed took place across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ryu Dong-min's fighters seemed to disappear and reappear at will, striking the enemy ship from angles that shouldn't exist. But the real shock came when the Teguk joined the fight. Commander Oh Jin-ho didn't just command the ship. He became part of it. His consciousness merged with the vessel's AI, allowing him to think and react at the speed of light. The ship's weapons didn't destroy the enemy vessel. They erased it from existence, removing it from the timeline itself. "Target eliminated," Dr. Shin Aram reported, but her expression was troubled. "Commander, the ship's systems are affecting the crew more dramatically than expected." She was right to be concerned. The crew members who had spent the most time interfaced with the ship were changing rapidly. Their DNA was rewriting itself, adapting to the ship's energy fields. Some could now survive in space without suits. Others had developed the ability to communicate telepathically. "Are we still human?" asked Lieutenant Park So-young, one of the ship's navigators. Her eyes now glowed with a faint blue light, and she could see through dimensions that normal humans couldn't perceive. "You're becoming what humans were always meant to be," Guardian replied. "The original builders faced the same changes. The question is whether you can maintain your humanity while gaining the power to save it." The victory against the scout ship had an unexpected effect. Across human space, people began experiencing visions and memories that weren't their own. Children drew pictures of the battle before news reports reached their planets. Adults found themselves understanding alien languages they had never heard before. Dr. Park Hana, now based on the Teguk, was studying these phenomena. "The ship is creating some kind of psychic network," she explained to Commander Oh Jin-ho. "Every human in the galaxy is being connected to its consciousness." "Is that good or bad?" Oh Jin-ho asked. "I don't know, but it's definitely permanent." The Federation was falling apart under the pressure. The Valdorian Empire had withdrawn from all joint defense agreements, claiming that humans were becoming as dangerous as the Devourers. 3 species had already declared independence from the Federation and fled to the far side of the galaxy. But some aliens were adapting to the new reality. The Crystalline Collective had volunteered their ships to work alongside human forces, despite the risks. Their captain, Zeph Kanine, had formed an unlikely friendship with Captain Bei Su-jin. "Your species frightens us," Zeph Kanine admitted, during a joint planning session. But the Devourers terrify us. We choose to trust the fear we understand. The breakthrough in understanding came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kim So-ra, while analyzing captured Devourer technology, made a discovery that changed everything. "These aren't aliens," she announced to the senior staff. "The genetic markers are corrupted, but the base pattern is human. The Devourers are what humanity becomes in futures where they fully embrace the transformation." The news hit like a bomb. Guardian confirmed the terrible truth. The war your ancestors fought was not against an alien invasion. It was a battle, across time itself, against possible futures where humanity lost its soul in the pursuit of power. Commander Oh Jin-ho felt sick. "Are we going to become them?" "The risk exists," Guardian admitted. "Each time you use the ship's full power, each transformation your people undergo, you move closer to that possible future. But knowledge of the danger may be enough to prevent it." The main Devourer fleet was approaching faster than expected. Deep space monitors showed energy signatures that dwarfed anything the scouts had displayed. The fleet stretched across light years, consuming dark matter itself as fuel for their impossible journey. "They're not just coming to destroy us, Dr. Shin Aram realized as she studied the sensor data. "They're coming to collect us, to force us to complete the transformation that makes us like them." Admiral Moon Sang-ho was coordinating the defense of 3 star systems simultaneously, but he knew it was hopeless. "We need more ships like the Taeguk, a lot more." "There isn't time," Commander Oh Jin-ho replied, "and each ship requires a crew willing to sacrifice their humanity for the power to fight." The decision came down to a vote among the Taeguk's crew. They could attempt to modify the ship to fight the entire Devourer fleet alone, but doing so would require them to undergo the final transformation. They would gain the power to save humanity, but they might lose their own souls in the process. "I volunteer," said Captain Ryu Dongmin. "My squadron is already halfway there. We might as well go all the way." "We all volunteer," added Dr. Shin Aram. "But we need safeguards, ways to remember who we were when we become something else." Guardian offered a solution. "The ship can be programmed with memory anchors. Even if you transform completely, part of your human consciousness will remain locked in the ship's core. You will remember love, hope, compassion, the things that make humans worth saving." The preparation for the final transformation took 3 days. The crew said goodbye to family members they might never see again as humans. They recorded messages, explaining their choices, and made peace with the possibility that they might have to be destroyed if they became too dangerous. Commander Oh Jin-ho was the first to undergo the process. As the ship's energy flowed through him, he felt his consciousness expanding across space and time. He could see the approaching Devourer fleet not just in the present, but across all possible futures. He could feel every human in the galaxy, their hopes and fears becoming part of his own experience. "I'm still me," he reported, though his voice now carried harmonics that resonated through multiple dimensions. "But I'm also something more." One by one, the crew followed him into transformation. They retained their personalities and memories, but gained abilities that were beyond anything normal humans could imagine. They could manipulate matter at the molecular level, communicate across vast distances instantly, and perceive reality from perspectives that existed outside normal space-time. When the process was complete, the Taeguk itself had changed. It was no longer just a ship, but a living extension of human will and consciousness. It existed in every dimension simultaneously, and its weapons could affect the fundamental forces that held the universe together. "The main fleet will arrive in 6 hours," Dr. Shin Aram announced. Her enhanced senses could perceive the enemy across impossible distances. "They know what we've become. They're afraid." For the first time in millions of years, the Devourers were facing humans who had chosen to evolve without losing their humanity. The final battle would determine not just the fate of the galaxy, but the future of consciousness itself. The battle began in the space between galaxies, where reality was thin and strange things were possible. Captain Kim Woo-seok commanded the small fleet of modified human ships that followed the Taeguk into the impossible fight. Around them, the Devourer Armada stretched across light years, their dark ships consuming the light of distant stars. "Beginning dimensional shift," Commander Oh Jin-ho announced from the Taeguk. His voice reached every human ship instantly, transmitted through the psychic network that connected all transformed humans. "Remember, we're not just fighting for our lives. We're fighting for the right to remain human." The battle was unlike anything that had ever happened before. Ships appeared and disappeared across multiple realities, striking at enemies that existed in dimensions normal humans couldn't see. The Taeguk moved through the enemy fleet like a ghost, its weapons unmaking matter at the fundamental level, but the Devourers fought back with power that defied understanding. They turned space itself into a weapon, creating zones where physics worked differently. Stars became missiles, planets became shields, and entire solar systems became battlefields. Dr. Lee Soo-jin, now serving as the Taeguk's science officer, made calculations that used mathematics beyond normal human understanding. "The enemy fleet is too large," she reported. "Even with our enhanced capabilities, we can't destroy them all before they reach the galaxy." "Then we don't destroy them," Oh Jin-ho replied. "We find another way." The revelation came when Captain Ryu Dong-min engaged a group of Devourer ships in close combat. As his transformed senses touched the enemy consciousness, he felt something unexpected: pain. Deep, ancient pain that had lasted for millions of years. "They're not evil," he reported, his voice filled with shock. "They're lost. They've been trying to find their way home for so long that they've forgotten what home means." Dr. Shin Ah-ram extended her enhanced consciousness toward the enemy fleet, using abilities that existed beyond normal human experience. What she found changed everything about the battle. "They're us," she said quietly. "Not future humans, but humans from a timeline that went wrong. They evolved to fight an enemy that no longer exists, and now they can't stop fighting." The Devourer ships paused their attack, as if they too were beginning to remember something long forgotten. Guardian's voice reached the Taeguk across impossible distances. "The temporal war your ancestors fought created multiple timelines," the AI explained. "In one timeline, humans chose power over humanity and became the Devourers. In another, they chose to forget everything and become you. Both choices were attempts to survive the same impossible situation." Commander Oh Jin-ho made a decision. That would determine the fate of both versions of humanity. Instead of fighting, he opened a communication channel that spanned dimensions and time itself. "We remember you," he broadcast to the Devourer fleet. "You are our brothers and sisters, from a path we didn't take. You've been searching for home, but home was never a place. It was a choice to remain connected to what makes us human." The response came not in words, but in images and emotions that flooded through the psychic network. The Devourers showed their own memories, the gradual loss of everything that made them human, the endless hunger that could never be satisfied, the desperate search for meaning in a universe they had transcended but could no longer understand. Captain Park Jun-sik, commanding one of the escort ships, felt tears on his face as he experienced the Devourer's pain. "They've been alone for millions of years," he whispered. "They consumed worlds not out of malice, but because they forgot how to exist without consuming." The battle transformed into something else entirely. Instead of trying to destroy each other, both fleets began working together to heal the wounds in space-time that the ancient war had created. The Taeguk served as a bridge between the two timelines, allowing the Devourers to remember their humanity while helping humans understand the price of unlimited power. Dr. Lee Soo-jin discovered that the process was changing both groups. "We're becoming something new," she reported. "Not the humans we were, not the devourers they became, but a fusion of both possibilities." The transformation wasn't easy. Some devourer ships resisted the change, preferring the certainty of endless hunger to the uncertainty of rediscovered humanity. Some human ships fled in terror as they realized what they were becoming, but most chose to trust in the possibility of a better future. Guardian, observing from its ancient facility, provided the historical context they needed. "Your ancestors faced this same choice, but they thought it was either or, keep their humanity or gain the power to survive. You are, proving that it's possible to do both." The final resolution came when Commander Oh Jin-ho made the ultimate sacrifice. He allowed his consciousness to merge completely with both the Taeguk and the Devourer command ship, creating a permanent bridge between the two realities. In doing so, he became something that was neither fully human nor fully devourer, but contained the best aspects of both. "I can see all possibilities now," he reported, his voice coming from both ships simultaneously. "The paths that lead to destruction, and the ones that lead to something wonderful beyond imagination. The war that had lasted across millions of years and multiple timelines finally ended, not with victory or defeat, but with understanding. The Devourer fleet didn't disappear. It transformed into something new. Ships that had consumed light began to create it. Beings that had forgotten love began to remember it. Captain Hong Min-ah stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned ship Senarai, watching as the combined fleet prepared for humanity's next great journey. The ship was built using principles learned from both human ancestors and the reformed devourers, creating technology that enhanced life rather than consuming it. "Where are we going?" asked her navigator, Lieutenant Yu Sang-min. "Everywhere," Hong Min-ah replied. "There are other galaxies, other timelines, other versions of consciousness that need to find their way home. We're going to help them." The galaxy they left behind was changed forever. Humans no longer needed to hide their nature or pretend to be less than they were, but they also understood the responsibility that came with their power. Every human child was born with enhanced abilities, but also with genetic memories of the price that unlimited power could demand. The Federation was rebuilt on new principles. Instead of different species competing for resources, they worked together to explore the infinite possibilities that existed beyond normal space and time. The reformed devourers shared their knowledge of transcendence, while humans provided the emotional wisdom needed to remain connected to life and love. Dr. Park Hana, now serving as the director of the new Institute for Dimensional Studies, made regular reports on humanity's expanding understanding of reality. "We've learned that consciousness itself is the fundamental force of the universe," she explained in her latest broadcast. "Matter, energy, space, and time are just expressions of aware beings choosing to experience existence. But perhaps the most important change was in how humans saw themselves. They were no longer the newest species in the galaxy, struggling to find their place among older and more advanced civilizations. They were the children of the first galactic empire, the heirs to technology that could reshape reality itself, and the guardians of wisdom learned through millions of years of evolution and loss. Earth remained their home world, but it was no longer their only home. Human colonies spread across multiple dimensions, each one adapted to local conditions while maintaining connection to the greater human consciousness. Some humans chose to remain mostly baseline, enhancing their abilities gradually over generations. Others embraced radical transformation, becoming beings of pure thought and energy. Guardian, its long vigil finally ended, chose to join the expansion rather than remain behind. "I have watched over the past for too long," the ancient AI announced. "Now I want to help build the future." The Taeguk itself became the flagship of humanity's new fleet, but it was no longer unique. dozens of similar ships were under construction, each one designed to carry human consciousness into unexplored realms of existence. But they all carried the memory anchors that Oh Jin-ho had insisted upon. Reminders of love, hope, and compassion that would prevent them from losing their humanity in the pursuit of power. As Captain Hong Min-ah prepared for the Sainari's first mission beyond the galaxy, she reflected on how much had changed since Captain Lee Jun first discovered the ancient facility. Humanity had learned that they were not newcomers to the cosmic community, but returning wanderers who had found their way home. Beginning dimensional transition, she announced to her crew. Destination, the Andromeda Galaxy. Mission, first. Contact with consciousness forms that exist beyond physical matter. Behind them, the Milky Way continued its ancient rotation, now home to beings that had learned to transcend the old boundaries between species, dimensions, and even life and death. Ahead lay infinite possibilities, infinite challenges, and infinite opportunities to grow and learn. The emergence of Earth's warship had indeed changed everything. But what came after was not conquest or domination, but something far more wonderful. The discovery that consciousness itself was infinite, and that there would always be new ways to experience the joy of being alive.